Hello, I am going to walk you through a few different digital media options for your class, and these are all ones that we have free and available to us at Trinity, and for most of them they have a pretty gentle learning curve, so it's not going to take a really long time for your students to get to learn them. So the first place that I want to start, because of how much variety it can give us, is Omeka. So we do have a limited amount of Omeka space that we can use, and so we can't upload a lot of large files to it, but through using things like embed links and just linking to outside things, we can make a pretty cool digital museum. So Omeka gives you this dashboard, and then the biggest things that you want to think about are your items, your collections, and your exhibits. So for a class, you might have one or two exhibits. If you click on an exhibit, it will take you to the overall site. Now, I haven't done too much with this sandbox site, so it's pretty blank, but you can put pictures and a description of the exhibit, and then on this side over here, once you start adding pages, it will have the menu that you can go through to look at all of the items in the exhibit. So exhibits are made up of items, and this is just anything that you add to the Omeka online museum itself. And so I've added a few different things just so we can see. So I'm going to just take a look at a few of them. So on this page, and you can view the public page too. So on this page, we have a video. I actually put this in the source area, and so I embedded this from YouTube, but you can have video. All of these different things here are just is just the data that I put in to let people know kind of the background data on this video. Now, the tags are going to be important when we start talking about our collections. So remember that you can tag things. So right now I have this tagged African, folklore, and Nigeria. So when I bring up those tags, if I browse just by tag, the items will come up. All right. So the second one that I'll show you is this podcast. So if you're having your students do podcasts, but you want them not just everywhere, so some students might be using Anchor, some of them might be using SoundCloud, whatever the case may be. If you don't want them kind of scattered to the four winds, then collecting them on a digital museum and putting them all on one particular website is a good idea. And you can do this easily. So in the subject area, I just embedded the podcast from Spotify that talks about this. And again, somewhere in here I have tags, or maybe I forgot to tag it. Yep, I forgot to tag this one. So if you don't tag it, none of that stuff will come up, but then again, all of this metadata, all of this data up here is just stuff that I've added to give the audience a little bit more detail about things. So you can add podcasts, you can add videos, you can add obviously text. So in this one I have added a file, and all this is just a PDF. And so when I click on it, it takes me to the PDF of this particular folktale that we're talking about. So those are the different things that I have in my exhibit right now. Those are the different items that I have. And I can always come back to items and take a look at the overall sort of thing. But the one other thing that I want to talk about, and this is where tags are important, are collections. So let's say you have a class of 20 students. You might I don't have any collections right now. You might have students working on folklore from Nigeria, folklore from Ghana, art from Nigeria, art from South Africa, like lots of different things. And so where those tags come in, and what's helpful in terms of collections is it lets you do different groupings. So obviously you can search by the tags, but you can also put certain things in particular collections. So if you want your overall exhibit to be all of the different things that are within your items, you can also just look specifically at the folklore collection or at the collection that goes with a specific country or whatever it is your class is studying that semester. So this gives you a little bit more in terms of how you might organize the site overall. So that is Omeka in general, and again, we do have different, a few different themes that you can make this look different. Right now, I'm using mine, which is digitalmedia.codeslibrary.com, but you can get your own site too, that has your own browser name. So I'm going to move on now to NightLab. So NightLab is another just set of tools that you can use, that students can use to build interactive sort of features. The nice thing with NightLab is kind of like Omeka, you don't have to worry about where you're going to put it. So a lot of times a student will build a nice video and then they'll be like, okay, well, do I just turn it in to T-Learn or do I have to put it somewhere? So with this, you don't have to worry about it. They'll share the link with you because once you create this, it has its own sort of space on the internet just by itself. So that's nice. So the two that I use the most personally are StoryMap and Timeline. So Timeline does what it says on the box. It's just a timeline that the students put together. If they know how to enter things into different fields in Excel, they can put together a timeline. It specifically runs off of Google Sheets, and so the learning curve for it is not too steep. And there's another video on this channel about putting together a timeline. Now the second one is StoryMap, which I'm actually going to click on and take a look at some of our story maps. So StoryMap lets you put together maps that have different parts of your qualitative data. And so if you have something that is really quite location-based, this can be a really cool way of showing that in an interactive sort of non-linear fashion. So I'm just going to take a look at the Southern Literary Trail one real fast. So this is the map that it gives you. And now you can do this a couple of ways, which I also find nice about story maps. So if you are the kind of person who really likes the linear, just clicking through it and being able to absorb the content, then you can click through it in a linear fashion using the arrow keys. But if you're someone who is more interested in kind of following your own trail of interests, then you can also just click on the little tabs, the little markers down here. So if I am interested in a particular state, then I can click the little markers that are in each particular state rather than having to click through all of them in order. So story maps is really, really good for, again, that locative sort of data sharing. But NightLab has all of these other ones. Juxtapose allows you to do frame-by-frame comparisons of pictures. Scene is a VR story thing, so lets you do some stuff with 360 pictures. SoundSite puts audio in the text, so if you have data where you are, say, you've got a student who is doing some sort of oral history and they're interviewing a bunch of people, they can put clips of the interview into the text itself. And then Storyline, Storyline is the last one here, and it lets you kind of give the qualitative context to numeric data. So we won't spend too much more time on this, but again, these are all really easy to get started with, and I do have a video specifically on the timeline also on this channel. So lastly, we have StorySpheres, and it does a little bit like what the scene function on NightLab does, which is it takes a 360 picture and turns it into an interactive experience for your audience. So we're just going to look at this one that I did for the collaborative sandbox. So some of the examples that you'll see, they have music going in the background that you can play, or someone's starting narration, but you can also just do it in this way where you are dragging the camera around, and you can see these little music notes here that denote some sort of sound. So when you click on it, these will give the narration that I put in saying, hey, welcome to the collaborative. We have workshops and different things for faculty development and all of the information that I give. So it's basically letting you take sort of a 3D tour of a space. You can see me in the window there. But it's nice because you can kind of tilt the camera however you want, and you can just get an idea of what the space looks like. So that is basically it in terms of all of the different options we have. Not all of them, but the biggest different options that we have in terms of using using outside tools to create interactive exhibits. But this is by no means an exhaustive list. So if you're having students do podcasts, it's really easy to set them up with Anchor. And so Anchor is actually an app, and it allows you to make your own podcasts. This, again, is really good because it gives students a space to put their creation. So if they were to do this in say, Adobe, for recording, or if they were to do it in Audacity or any other sound recording software, then they would have to find a place to put it on the internet. Anchor gives you that because it is built specifically for podcasting. So again, it's pretty click and drag in terms of getting started with it, and it's a really good way of having a sort of centralized point for all of your podcasts. And you can also share from Anchor. So if you do end up doing something like the museum and you want to do like what I've done here and put the podcast episodes into your digital museum, so maybe out of the 20 students in the class, only 5 are doing podcasts. So you've got the space for everyone else, but you can put the podcasts in here too. So you can share from Anchor as well. And then there are other things like different data visualization tools. There's different sort of presentation or movie tools that are easy to get started with, but these are sort of the big ones. And so if you have any questions, let me know, and I am happy to continue discussing with you what's best for your class. Thank you.